Beer. It's the most popular alcoholic beverage in Canada. A thirst that drives an industry. In fact, the Canuck desire for a cold one has made the beer industry an economic pillar for our country. So while you don't need to see the numbers, they do present compelling evidence. The beer industry accounts for over 160,000 jobs. In fact, 1 out of every 100 jobs in Canada is supported by beer, bringing governments nearly $6 billion in revenue. That's tax to me and you. From British Columbia to Newfoundland and Labrador, beer is a cross-country industry that turns a profit of $1.12 for every dollar spent. That profit margin is a nationwide driving force for the industry, buffering an economy that's multi-layered and diverse. The brewing tradition runs deep in the Atlantic provinces. There are 22 breweries in the region. Combined with hydroelectric and paperboard container production, beer provides thousands of jobs in the east. Central Canada, unquestionably the country's brewing hub, home to the largest breweries in the country. This region has not only the largest brewing capacity, but also the distribution networks and financial headquarters that support the industry. Relatively speaking, the 3 prairie provinces are not large beer brewers, but provide a large proportion of the distribution and warehousing of beer and, of course, the grains. British Columbia has 72 breweries, second in number only to Ontario. Brewing activity in the territories is limited. 73% of the jobs in BC and the territories is supported by beer consumption in that region. That consumption is bolstered by seasonal workers and a booming tourist industry. Those are the stats, the numbers, the facts. Stacked up, they do present beer as a pillar of the Canadian economy. But in order to get a taste of just what beer means to Canadians, we went out to Cameron's Brewing Company in Oakville, Ontario. Bill Coleman is the president. Jason Britton is the brewmaster. Cameron's is an example of how being a small member of a big industry does not diminish your impact.
There's a lot more involved in making and manufacturing beer than just equipment and running the process. We buy labels from a local supplier, cardboard from a local supplier, recycled materials when possible. Our artist is local. Even when we're all done brewing, our spent grain goes to local cattle.
It's a truly an entrepreneurial business. When you run it every day, and you got to think about everything from the employees to product quality, all the P's in marketing. The downside might be just keeping up with the consumer's demand and tastes. The good news is the beer consumer is moving towards craft beers, but the challenge is getting share of mind and getting people to come and buy your beer versus somebody else's.
So there you have it, beer. It's been part of our cultural heritage for hundreds of years now, and now it's become an integral part of the Canadian economy. In fact, when it comes to beer, there really is no substitute. I guess that's all that's left to say now is... Cheers!
I don't know about you, but he made me hungry. Brian Dunstan joins us now from our Toronto studios. Fascinating facts in that. They brew beer across the street from me. They opened a brew pub about a year ago. It is one of the most popular bars in downtown Ottawa right now. You can't get a seat at lunch.
That's not surprising, Brian. The craft beer industry in Canada is booming. In fact, if you look at the numbers, a little behind the numbers that we got from that Conference Board of Canada report, which, by the way, was sponsored by the beer industry, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. 30% of all the jobs that are in the beer industry come through craft brewing. So it's a booming industry on many levels. At the local level, you see it in small towns across Canada, particularly in central Canada, where the craft brewing industry is just taken off.
I was surprised you said that BC's second only to Ontario in craft brewing, because I got a lot of family in Quebec through my wife's side, and they have small breweries all over the place, and you can buy it in the gas station and the corner store. But quickly on the economic impact, Premier Brad Wall from Saskatchewan was in with me a little while ago, told me I think it was 25–30% of all the barley that goes into Japanese beer comes from his province, comes from Saskatchewan. So it's a big export industry too.
Massive. We look at some of the moves made by the Conservative government in the last 4 to 5 years about expanding Canada's outreach in terms of exporting. Well, a large part of that is the beer industry itself. The products that go into making beer are sent all over the world from Canada. Beer from Canada is really making inroads in the Asian market, particularly in China, which has a very thirsty population.
That's not too bad. So we can look forward to more beer stories, more beer exports, and more beer jobs, thankfully, in the years to come.
No doubt about it. It's a $13 billion industry based on consumption alone.
All right. Show's almost done. You know what I'm doing. Brian, good talking to you. We'll chat again soon.
Always a pleasure, Brian.